Hello everyone and welcome back to NovaLogos Audio English. In our last chapter we stood on the mountain with Elijah and heard the tiny whispering sound of God. Today we enter the royal courts and the sacred temple of Jerusalem to meet a man whose words have shaped the heartbeat of faith for centuries. We meet the Prince of Prophets, Isaiah. Isaiah lived during a time of trembling. The shadows of invading empires were growing long, and the hearts of the people were growing cold. Have you ever looked at the world and felt a deep sense of unworthiness or uncleanliness? Have you ever felt that the problems of your age were too big for a single voice to address? Isaiah's story begins with a terrifyingly beautiful encounter with the holiness of God, an experience that burned away his fear and gave him a vision that stretched far into the future. Today, we explore how a man with unclean lips became the herald of the Messiah and how his message of comfort continues to sustain those in exile. Section 1. The Coal and the Commission. Isaiah's ministry began with a vision that redefined his entire existence. He saw the Lord seated on a high and lofty throne, with seraphim crying out, "Holy, holy, holy." In the book of the prophet Isaiah, chapter 6, verse 8, we find his life-changing response. "Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, 'Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Here I am,' I said, 'send me.'" Before Isaiah could say, "Send me," he had to say, "Woe is me." He realized his own sinfulness in the light of God's holiness. But God didn't leave him in his guilt. He sent an angel with a burning coal to touch his lips and purify him. This is the pattern of every great calling, a realization of our weakness, followed by a divine touch that makes us ready. Reflection. Do you feel unqualified for the task God has placed on your heart? Remember, God doesn't call the equipped, He equips the called. Isaiah teaches us that your past failures, or your sense of inadequacy, are not obstacles to God. All He requires is a heart that says, "Here I am, send me." Section 2. The Shadow, the Suffering Servant. The shadow in Isaiah's message was the reality of judgment, and the suffering servant. Isaiah had to deliver hard truths to a people who refused to listen. But his most profound shadow was the prophecy of a Messiah who would not come in earthly glory, but in pain. From Isaiah chapter 53, verse 5, we hear the weight of this sacrifice. "But he was pierced for our sins, crushed for our iniquity. He bore the punishment that makes us whole. By his wounds we were healed." This is the shadow of the cross, centuries before it happened. Isaiah understood that true redemption requires a price. He saw a Vidura, man of suffering, who would be led like a lamb to the slaughter. For a nation looking for a military conqueror, this was a difficult and dark shadow to embrace. It teaches us that God's victory often looks like a defeat to the world. Mirroring our lives. We often want the hacho so crown want without the kasho cross. We want healing without the krabo das, wounds. But Isaiah's shadow reminds us that our deepest growth often comes through the things we suffer. Are you in a season of being crushed or pierced by life's circumstances? Trust that God is using those very wounds to bring about a healing that the world cannot give, Section 3. The Light, Comfort in Exile. Despite the warnings, Isaiah's message is ultimately one of radiant light. He provided the Compriakar, Comprial, Abakar, Compriaci, gospel of the Old Testament. When the people eventually found themselves in exile, it was Isaiah's words that became their lifeline. In Isaiah chapter 40, verse 1, the tone shifts to pure light. Comfort, give comfort to my people, says your God. He spoke of a highway in the desert, of valleys being lifted and mountains being made low. He promised that those who hope in the Lord would soar on eagle's wings. The light of Isaiah is the assurance that no exile is permanent, and no desert is too dry for God to bring a spring of water. He gave us the vision of a destined new heaven and a new earth, where peace reigns forever. The light of hope. Hope is not the absence of trouble, it is the presence of a promise. Isaiah's light teaches us to look past our current, Babylon, to the Jerusalem that is coming. When you feel exhausted, remember that the same God who called Isaiah is the one who gives strength to the fainting and renews the spirit of the weary. Section 4. Bridge to the present, becoming a voice of comfort. How can Isaiah's grand vision influence our daily lives today? 1. Accept the purifying fire. Don't hide your flaws from God. Let His mercy touch your unclean lips so you can speak with His authority. 2. Be available. Don't wait until you feel ready to help others. Simply be available. Say, "Here I am," when you see a need. 3. Speak hope into the desert. Our world is full of people in exile, lonely, discouraged, and lost. Use your words to give comfort and point them toward the light. Section 5. Language Clinic. Expressing Availability and Restoration. To help you describe your willingness to serve and the hope of starting over, let's look at these English patterns. 1. Here I am. Send me. This is the classic formula for volunteering for a mission. Here I am. Action. Example. When the team needed a leader, she stood up and said, "Here I am. Send me." Spiritual use. It expresses total availability. You aren't asking for the details. You are offering yourself to the one who knows the details. 2. By His wounds we were healed. This uses a passive structure to show the result of someone else's sacrifice. By cause, result, was, were, action. Example. By her hard work, the family was sustained. Spiritual use. It captures the core of substitutionary love, the idea that one person's suffering can bring another person's peace. 3. Give comfort to. This is a more active and poetic way of saying to console or to encourage. Example. The community gathered to give comfort to those who had lost their homes. Spiritual use. It describes a specific mandate. It's not just about feeling sorry for someone. It's about providing the actual strength they need to endure. Consolidation and review. Key phrases for your journey. 1. Here I am. Send me. The ultimate phrase of vocational readiness. It shifts the focus from our lack of ability to our abundance of availability, trusting the caller to provide the power. 2. Holy, holy, holy. This, trisagion, represents the absolute otherness and purity of God. It reminds us that our worship should be grounded in a healthy awe of the divine. 3. Comfort. Give comfort to my people. A divine command to be agents of hope. It teaches us that our words have the power to sustain others during their metaphorical exile. 4. By his wounds we were healed. A summary of the mystery of redemption. It suggests that pain, when surrendered to God, can become the source of the world's greatest healing. 5. A voice of one crying out in the desert describes the role of a pioneer or a messenger. It encourages us to speak the truth even when the environment seems barren or unresponsive. 6. They will soar on eagle's wings, a promise of supernatural endurance. It reassures us that those who wait on God will receive a strength that far exceeds their human limits. Closing, the highway in the desert. Thank you for joining us for Chapter 14. Isaiah reminds us that even with unclean lips, we can be part of God's great plan if we are willing to be touched by His fire. Look up from your circumstances and see the King on the throne. In Chapter 15, we will meet Judith, the woman of courage who saved her nation. We will explore how her daring faith and prayerful heart defeated an army when all hope seemed lost. If the vision of Isaiah has sparked hope in your heart, please like this video and subscribe to NovaLogos Audio English. Your support helps us share these messages of comfort with the world. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next portrait of faith. Until we meet again, be a voice of hope. Goodbye.